I never believed in monsters, not the kind hiding under your bed, or the ones in ghost stories parents used to keep kids in line. I believed in science, in logic, in things that could be dissected and explained. But that was before I saw it. Before I came face to face with something that shouldn't exist. Something older than our myths, buried deep in the red dirt of Australia. Something that still hungers. It started when I took a break from the noise of Sydney. My name's Ethan, and I work in content creation, niche horror stories mostly, ironically. Cryptids, urban legends, local myths. I'd gotten pretty good at uncovering forgotten lore and spinning it into something that people couldn't stop watching. But there was one creature that always stood out. One I kept hearing whispers about from Aboriginal elders and small-town locals. The Yara-ma-yha-who. No one ever wanted to talk about it in detail. Just vague warnings. Stay out of fig trees, they'd say. Especially the old ones. Especially if they're growing alone. The thing is, I'd been researching this creature for months, and no one had any real footage, not even blurry photos. It was all legend, nothing tangible. And for someone like me, that just made it more enticing. So I rented a battered 4WD and drove out toward the northern tablelands. There's a forested area up there, off the beaten track, with fig trees that have been around longer than colonization. The locals call it dead country, not because of ghosts, but because the land feels wrong.
No birdsong.
No wind, just heat and silence. I arrived late afternoon, planning to spend one night and shoot some B-roll. The first thing I noticed was how dense the trees were. Thick roots snaking along the ground like veins, fig branches twisted together like arthritic fingers. The air was heavy. Still, I pitched my tent just outside the main cluster of trees. I brought trail mix, water, and some light gear, nothing too fancy. Around sunset, I started filming. I talked to the camera, explaining the legend of the Yara-ma-yha-who. A small, red-skinned creature, no taller than a child. Bald, bulbous head, suckers instead of fingers and toes. It lived in fig trees and would drop down on unsuspecting travelers, draining their blood slowly. Not killing them outright, but leaving them weak, dazed. Then it would swallow them whole. But it didn't digest them. Not right away. According to legend, if it did this over and over, the victim would slowly turn into one of them. Something about repeated ingestion. The thought made me chuckle. It sounded like folklore cooked up to keep kids from wandering too far. But in the back of my mind, I remembered how serious the elders had been. Their silence hadn't felt like superstition. It felt like fear. After dark, I set up a motion-triggered camera facing the fig grove. The moon was full, casting silvery light over everything, making the trees look skeletal. I sat near the tent, editing footage on my laptop when I heard it. A soft thump, like something heavy dropping into the leaves. I froze.
No footsteps.
No animals. Just that sound like flesh hitting dirt. I killed the laptop screen and listened. Another thump, closer this time. Then a squelching sound.
Vet.
Deliberate. I reached for my flashlight, but something told me not to turn it on. I don't know why. Maybe instinct. Maybe something deeper. Instead, I crawled toward the edge of the grove and peered through the underbrush. At first, I saw nothing, just moonlight slanting through the branches. Then I saw movement, something small and red creeping along the ground. Not walking, crawling, almost spider-like. The skin glistened, raw like uncooked meat. I couldn't see its face at first, just its back, hunched and trembling. Then it turned. Its eyes were wide, too wide, like someone had stretched them out with hooks. And its mouth, it wasn't smiling, but the shape suggested it could. Dozens of tiny teeth all filed down like needles. I didn't breathe, didn't blink. The thing crept past my camera and stopped at the base of the largest fig tree. It pressed its fingers, those sucker-covered fingers, against the bark like it was reading something. Then it climbed. No sound.
No hesitation.
It moved with eerie grace, clinging to the trunk upside down. It settled into the crook of two branches and curled up like a waiting spider. I backed away, slow, careful. I didn't want to run. I didn't want to make a sound. Every nerve in my body screamed for me to get the hell out of there. But some part of me was locked in place, mesmerized by what I'd seen. My camera had caught it, I was sure. Proof. That thought was enough to keep me there. I waited until dawn before I moved. As soon as the sun began bleeding through the trees, I ran to the motion cam. The red light was blinking, movement detected. I pulled the SD card, shoved it into my laptop, and scrolled through the footage. My hands shook as the clip played. It showed exactly what I saw. The creature dropping to the ground, crawling, climbing, but just as it reached the branch, just as its face turned toward the camera, the image glitched. Not a normal distortion. The frame blurred like oil in water, and a high-pitched tone pierced through the audio. Then nothing. Black screen. The rest of the footage? Gone. Every file was corrupted, even the B-roll from earlier. That's when I knew something wasn't right. It wasn't just a creature hiding in the trees. It was something else entirely. Something that didn't want to be seen. I packed up and left in a hurry, barely stopping to zip my bag. I didn't speak the whole drive back. My phone kept glitching too. GPS losing signal.
Battery draining fast.
That night, I uploaded a video to my channel explaining what happened. I didn't have proof, but I told the story as it happened. Honest, raw. The comments poured in. Most people thought it was a stunt. RG stuff. But a few people said they'd seen it too. Different parts of Australia. Always near fig trees. Always alone. Then came the emails. Unmarked senders. No subject lines. Just grainy photos of red figures hiding in shadows. Audio clips of strange clicking sounds. One message stood out. You saw it. I saw you. You don't walk away from that. I haven't been back to the bush since. But sometimes, when I walk under trees in the city, even the ornamental fig trees, they seem quieter than they should. Like something's watching, waiting. And last night, I found tiny sucker marks on my bedroom window. I didn't sleep that night. I just lay there, staring at the ceiling, trying to convince myself that the marks on my window were anything but what they looked like. I wanted to believe it was condensation, a bird, a prank. But deep down, I knew the truth. The pattern was too distinct, circular impressions in 4 precise rows. The kind that matched fingers. Fingers with suckers. The next morning, I checked my locks. Front door secure. Windows latched. No sign of forced entry. But that only made it worse. Whatever had been there, it didn't need to force anything. It had just been watching. Close enough to leave its prints. And I had slept right through it. I debated going to the police, but what could I say? Hi, officer. I think a mythical blood-sucking creature from Aboriginal folklore was watching me sleep. I'd be lucky if they didn't section me. Instead, I did what I always do, I researched. I dove headfirst into everything I could find on the Yara-ma-yha-who. Not just the standard legends, but archived journals, obscure anthropology blogs, ancient oral traditions recorded by linguists. I even reached out to a woman named Marjorie, an academic living in Alice Springs who had spent years working with Aboriginal communities documenting stories. I didn't expect her to reply, but she did. Her email was short. Stop looking. They don't like attention. The more you talk about it, the more real it becomes. The more real it becomes, the closer it gets. I stared at that line for hours. I wanted to dismiss it, but it echoed something I'd felt myself. Like the more I researched, the more I fed something I didn't understand. And worse, something that now knew me. Like I'd drawn its gaze simply by speaking its name. I tried to go back to normal. Really, I did. I made a few lighthearted videos, some analysis on horror movie tropes, anything to steer my channel back toward safety. But my audience had tasted something real. They flooded my inbox with theories, requests for updates, sightings. One person sent a voicemail at 3:13 a.m. Just static at first, then faint breathing, then a voice whispering, "He's in the tree." I didn't sleep that night either. Then came the dreams. They started a few days later, short, vivid. I'd be standing in a forest of twisted fig trees, moonlight bleeding through the branches. I couldn't move, couldn't speak. Something above me would shift, and before I could look up, I'd wake up gasping, heart pounding. Always at 2:37 a.m., I started drawing the tree I saw in those dreams. Over and over, my walls filled with sketches, branches like ribs, roots like fingers. I wasn't trying to. My hand just moved. It was like the image had burned itself into me. And then, things got worse. One night, while reviewing some older footage from that trip, footage I thought had been corrupted, I found something strange. A single frame buried in static. It wasn't part of my shoot. It wasn't anything I remembered filming. It was a still image, timestamped 3:09 a.m. It showed me sleeping in my tent, but it was from outside the tent. Someone or something had filmed me from the tree line. My face was turned toward the camera, mouth slightly open, completely unaware. And standing behind me, just beyond the mesh of the tent, was a figure. Small, red, watching. I froze. My mouth went dry. I wanted to scream, but no sound came out. I don't even remember closing the laptop. Just the feeling of my heart trying to claw its way out of my chest. That night, I packed a bag. Just essentials, clothes, power bank, hard drives. I didn't tell anyone. I didn't leave a note. I got in my car and drove. I didn't know where. I just needed to be moving. To be away from trees, from windows, from anything that could watch me back. I ended up in a small coastal town in South Australia. Quiet place. No fig trees. I rented a room above a fish and chip shop. Paid in cash. The owner, a retired fisherman named Mick, barely asked any questions. He just handed me the key and pointed to the stairs. The room was small.
No te ve.
One bed, one window facing the ocean. Felt safe. For the first 2 nights, nothing happened. Then, on the third, I woke up to the sound of tapping. Not on the door. On the window. 3 slow taps. Pause. Then 2 more. Deliberate. I got out of bed and crept to the window, expecting to see a bird or a branch swaying in the wind. But there was nothing. Just the endless black of the ocean. The air was completely still. Then, as I started to turn away, I saw it, in the reflection of the glass. A figure behind me. I spun around, room empty, but I swear on everything I've ever loved. It was there. Same size, same shape, watching. I didn't sleep again. The next morning, I went downstairs and asked Mick about fig trees. Just casually. He scratched his beard and said, "Nah, not around here. Too salty. Soil doesn't take to 'em." I nodded, but I could tell he was holding something back. Later that afternoon, he knocked on my door holding a tin of beer. He sat down, cracked it open and said, "You saw it, didn't ya?" I didn't respond. He continued, "Years back, when I was shrimping in the territory, I saw something too. Little red bastard, clinging to a tree like it owned the place. Locals warned me, told me not to speak its name. I didn't listen." He looked down at his trembling hands. "My boy saw it next, then my wife, then they weren't them anymore." I asked him what he meant. He didn't answer, just stood up, dropped the empty tin in the bin, and walked out of the room. Later that night, I noticed something odd in the corner, a shadow that didn't match the angle of the lamp. It stayed still at first, almost unnoticeable. Then, inch by inch, it began to grow. I reached for my phone, opened the camera. No signal, no image, just a black screen with one word flashing at the bottom. Closer. I left Mick's the next morning. Didn't say goodbye. Didn't take the highway either. I just drove south, then inland, away from the coast, away from fig trees, away from people. I ended up in a caravan park in a place called Loxton. Small, flat town in the Riverland. It had that familiar sun-cracked feel. Dusty air, dry grass, and silence that stuck to your skin. I told myself I'd stay for one night just to regroup, but I stayed for 6. I didn't want to sleep anymore, not really, but I was more afraid of being awake. The thing is, when something's stalking you, not chasing, not hunting, but following, you begin to unravel in small, quiet ways. You stop trusting reflections. You check behind the shower curtain even when you know it's empty. You start avoiding eye contact with shadows because part of you wonders if they'll look back. And the dreams didn't stop. Every single one began the same way. I was back in that fig grove. Moonlight painting the leaves silver. That awful silence hanging in the air. Always the same tree in front of me. Its roots pulsing like veins. Its bark slick and warm. And then the sound. Like someone breathing, but not through lungs. Vit. Circular. Like suction. In one dream, I looked up and saw dozens of them. Yara-ma-yha-who, perched silently in the branches above. Dozens of pale eyes. Dozens of tiny mouths, not moving, but grinning. They didn't attack. They just waited, watching, like they knew I'd come willingly. And maybe I had. When I woke, my arms were dotted with bruises. Round ones, perfect circles, sucker-shaped. I stopped sleeping after that. I bought caffeine pills from a petrol station and stayed awake as long as I could. By day 4, I was hallucinating. Faces in trees, voices whispering from storm drains. Once, I saw a child-sized shadow dart behind the bin near the caravan. But when I checked, nothing was there, except a single fig leaf, dried and curled at the edges. That night, I got an email from Marjorie.
No greeting.
No subject, just a single attachment. A PDF scan of a handwritten journal entry, dated 1912. The pages were yellowed, cracked at the corners. I zoomed in, heart thudding. They come not from the trees, but from the hunger in the stories. When you speak of them, you invite them. When you believe in them, you feed them. They were once men, turned strange by the land and the blood rituals of the old tribes. Not all of them died. Some adapted, became parasites, swallowed and spat you out until your soul was theirs. And now they wear your shape. I read that line over and over. Now they wear your shape. Suddenly, everything clicked. The missing people, the dreams, the thing in the reflection that almost looked like me. What if it wasn't just watching? What if it was becoming me? On night 7, I caught myself speaking out loud, just murmuring under my breath, like I was reciting something. I didn't know the words. I couldn't recognize the language. It felt ancient, a thick, guttural tone that scraped against my throat like gravel. My tongue felt wrong in my mouth, heavy and slick, like it didn't belong to me. I ran into the bathroom and looked in the mirror. My face was mine, but it wasn't. Something was off, too symmetrical. My pupils dilated too quickly. And there, just under the skin of my neck, something pulsed, like movement, like breathing. That was when I knew I was out of time. I had to find the original grove again, not just to retrace my steps, but to end it. I know how that sounds. I'm not an idiot, I know horror tropes. Going back to where it started never works. But this wasn't about logic anymore. It was about instinct. Somewhere inside, I felt like the fig tree had become a door. That first time it had opened just a crack. And now, with every thought, every whisper, I was wedging it open wider. So I drove back, northern tablelands, straight into the heart of that dead country. Took me 8 hours. By the time I reached the dirt track, the sun was already beginning to set. Everything looked the same, but I didn't. I was thinner, paler. The skin around my eyes was purpled and sunken. My mouth ached constantly, like my jaw was adjusting to something bigger than itself. I found the grove by memory. It hadn't changed. Still dense, still silent, still wrong. I stepped into the trees and felt it immediately. A shift, like the air had weight, like the forest was exhaling me back in. I passed the old spot where my tent had been. The camera was gone. No trace of gear.
No disturbed soil. No footprints.
Like I'd never been there at all. But the fig tree was still there. The one from my dreams. Gnarled. Bit. Too alive. I approached slowly, every nerve screaming. I didn't know what I was looking for. Maybe closure. Maybe an answer. Maybe the thing that had been following me, hiding behind my eyes. The base of the tree was covered in old leaves, rotting in thick layers. As I knelt down to brush some away, I noticed a strange indentation, like something had curled into the roots, coiled itself into the earth. That's when I saw it. A mirror, not a real one. More like a pool of resin or hardened sap embedded in the bark. Its surface was smooth, reflective. But what I saw staring back wasn't me. It was almost me. The same shape, the same clothes, but the skin was red, the eyes too wide, and the mouth. God. The mouth stretched open, unnaturally wide, bearing rows of tiny, sharp teeth. And it smiled, not an expression of joy or malice, but of recognition. I stumbled back, heart slamming against my ribs. Behind me, a branch snapped. I spun around, nothing but shadows. My breath was ragged, throat dry like I'd been screaming even though I hadn't made a sound. My skin crawled. Every instinct told me to run. But instead, I stepped closer to the tree. There was something about it, something magnetic. The air around it shimmered like heat off asphalt. And the bark, I swear, pulsed. I reached out without meaning to, fingers brushing the surface where that false reflection had been. It was gone. Just bark. Dry. Cold. But behind me something was breathing. Not the wind. Not an animal. It was deliberate, slow, wet, rhythmic. I turned again and it was there. The Yara-ma-yha-who. Not crawling this time. Standing. Barely 5 feet tall. Red skin like meat left in the sun. Veins crawling just beneath the surface. Its head was bulbous, twitching slightly. And those eyes. God. Those eyes. Too wide, lidless, soaking in every inch of me. Its hands were outstretched, suckered fingers flexing, twitching, reaching. Took a step. I didn't move. Took another. I should have run, screamed, fought, but I just stood there, frozen in that space between terror and fascination, because something was happening inside me. My skin felt tight, like it didn't fit. My teeth ached. My joints cracked, slowly, softly, like wood bending under pressure. And then it spoke, not in words, not out loud, but in my head. You are almost ready. That broke me. I stumbled back, tripped on a root, landed hard. The thing didn't chase me. It just stood over me, head tilted like it was studying a mirror. I scrambled up, ran blindly through the trees. Branches slashed at my face. Roots tried to trip me. I didn't care. I didn't stop until I collapsed at the edge of the forest. Hands bleeding, lungs on fire. There were no cars, no signs of life. My vehicle gone. Just an endless stretch of trees behind me, and something waiting inside them. I wandered for what felt like hours, delirious. I think I passed out once or twice. Woke up in a ditch with my phone missing and my left shoe half melted. I was a mess, starving, weak, and still that pull toward the tree remained, like a hook buried deep in my spine, tugging. Eventually, I found a farmhouse. Lights on. A woman, older, kind eyes, opened the door. Didn't ask questions. She gave me tea, wrapped my hand, called a friend in town who could drive me to a clinic. But before I left, she sat across from me, reached out, and took my wrist gently. You saw one. It wasn't a question. I nodded. She sighed. They don't like being remembered, don't like being named. You bring them into the light, they follow. She reached into a drawer and handed me something. A small pouch made of kangaroo skin. Inside, ash, white ochre, and something that smelled like eucalyptus. Keep this near you, she said. Don't open it. Don't speak of them again. I took it, clutched it like a lifeline. The ride to town was silent. I got patched up at the clinic and was told I was dehydrated, exhausted, borderline psychotic. They recommended I see someone. I nodded, smiled, left. I didn't go home. Instead, I vanished, changed my number, moved cities. I live in a small apartment now above a bakery. No fig trees,
No forests.
just bricks and neon. I shut the channel down, deleted everything, scrubbed my name from the niche horror community. People thought I burned out. Some thought it was a marketing stunt. A few hardcore fans still send messages asking for updates. But I've never spoken of it again until now, because something's wrong. I've been waking up with blood in my mouth. My fingers twitch at night like they're grasping for something. I caught my reflection smiling when I wasn't. And yesterday, I passed a park on my way home. Right in the center, where no tree had stood before, was a fig tree. Small, but growing fast. Its branches reached upward like it was stretching after a long sleep. And under it, curled into the roots, was something red. Watching, waiting. The pouch burned hot in my pocket. I walked away, didn't look back. But I know. It's too late now. You see, the Yara-ma-yha-who doesn't need to catch you all at once. It swallows you in pieces. A drop of blood here, a dream there, a flicker in the mirror, a skipped heartbeat, until one day you wake up and you're not quite you anymore. And the thing smiling back in the mirror is hungry, and it knows your name. If you were me, would you have gone back to that fig grove? Would you have kept chasing the truth, knowing it might cost you your mind? Or worse, your soul? Comment below and let me know. What would you have done differently? And share this story with someone you know. Because if they've ever walked past a fig tree at night, they might not be alone. Make sure to like, subscribe, and hit the bell. I'll be watching the comments. Just be careful what names you say out loud.